Okay, there we are. Now it's actually working.
Oh, for better or for worse.
Yeah, for better or for worse. There we are.
Oh no.
Hello, Atropolis. And hey, Xanaran. My goodness, I'm going to have a whole lot of chats to watch at once, but that's okay. I'll manage somehow. I think I set up make sure that the thing does audio notifications. Oh, right. Channel title. There we are. Awesome. Oh, good. I've got people telling me that audio sounds good. Hooray! And you guys should all be able to hear the other people in the conversation, although they're being very quiet. They're being very, very quiet. Oh, someone's saying that I have a ringing sound. I'm going to look into that. No, it's on my end. I'm pretty sure. Now that's somebody's background noise. Let's see. That's definitely not on my end. No. Aha. Sounds like someone might have set their microphone down in front of a fan.
Is it me?
Probably.
It might be.
Is it me?
Oh, there. That's better. That's better. You got it. You solved it. Yeah, that fixed it.
All right. Thanks for letting me know.
Yep.
I have to start the thing now.
Okay, go ahead.
Bob,
Launch the missile now. Launch the missile.
Bob, unmute yourself.
That's right. I guess I should probably put this thing up here, and then I can actually see what people are doing. That's a cute rabbit. That's a lop. That's a lop rabbit.
That's something or other.
No, it's the ears.
I have to start the thing.
Yes, begin, fire, launch. I've already started mine.
Okay.
Okay.
An intro? Should you have a sting and everything?
Hey everyone, Sycra here. This is my intro that is very important to introduce this stream, this Sycra stream. But it's also a stream that's being streamed on other venues. That is because we have a special guest who is a very talented person capable of streaming on not one, but more than one thing.
3.
Time. And that is Mark.
Hello.
Also known as Moat DD. Well, that's how I know him as Moat DD, even though that's like what it's. His name is Mark.
He wanted to eat my brain, pick my brain. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the brain eating one is Bob.
Oh.
So we also have Bob, who looks very, very similar
He's
to
gone.
Moat DD.
He's gone.
To Mark. Yeah, I saw he dropped his laptop.
Uh-oh. No, Bob's still there. I still see Bob's feed.
That's his other thing. But yeah.
Oh, he has two feeds.
So now we have two. No, we don't have two Bobs, but one would be forgiven for thinking that there were.
Okay.
Appearance alone and voice.
I see.
All right. Now that I've made this very awkward, we also have Flavia. So I'll introduce the rabbit, because we often get people asking, who's that? Who's painting this? Okay, so in the red corner, painting on Clip Studio Paint, rabbit, it's Flavia.
Hello.
Hello.
In the blue corner, I think is the other corner, on TV Paint, painting anime, girls, is Mark.
Yes.
And in the other blue corner, or drawing in Photoshop, it's Bob Meatbag.
Is Bob's audio working?
No.
Bob's audio is not working because he
Head
uses.
yeah.
That's funny. He's
Oh, he
using
wrote
it.
no.
No.
Yeah.
He was using another device to use the audio in that device.
Did the warranty for that device just suddenly expire? Like just now?
Perhaps.
Unfortunate.
Cool. So possibly. So we'll be having Silent Bob
Silent Bob, Jane, Silent Bob.
and a very active Mark.
Yes.
All right. So, thanks for being on this, Mark.
Yep.
For joining me and others on this stream. I know it's a rare occasion for you to do stuff with.
I rarely go on stream. I'm such a lazy bum. I'm the laziest bum of them all. Actually, no. Usually, around this time, I'd be like cooking. I cook like all the food that I eat over the course of the week in one sitting or two.
Oh.
So that's what the weekends are. Weekends are usually food cooking for me, but in this
Do you
case,
freeze it or just
I'll stick them in Tupperware.
refrigerate it?
Yeah, refrigerate them. Yeah, and that way it's like it's really good if you do a lot of broadcasting because it's like every time you need food, you just throw it in the microwave, zap it up for about 3 minutes, and it's ready. You can have home cooked food. Probably a lot healthier.
That's great.
It's cheaper too.
Yeah, that sounds great. Cool. All right, so we already have some questions that people left in the chat, so I might as well get to it. Do you think it's Avery Hodge asks, do you think it's important to think about what you're trying to say with a drawing or not? Why or why not? All right, Mark, what do you think? Is it important to try to say something with a drawing?
I think, well, let me put it this way. I think that at the end of the day, the art has to be entertaining. Or we're making entertainment. We're putting on a show for people, even if we're the only person who's looking at it. So I don't necessarily know if we have to come out and give some actual message and say, drugs are bad, okay? Like I don't think we have to come out with an overt message like that. But I think it really is important to know how you want your art, how you want to come across with your art, and you want to know there's subjective feelings that you want your art to trigger. And I shouldn't just say that. This is kind of dangerous because you can't just say, all right, I'm going to make a piece of art that's going to make people cry. Because that kind of leads us down this path of, well, in order to make people, see, in order to make people cry, I guess I'll have to make some sad puppies and like melting ice cream cones and like the thing is that if you're going to make entertaining, if you're going to make something entertaining, if we're going to talk about aesthetics, all right, there's there's things which are, aesthetics are subjective. And a lot of the stuff that I've probably talked about, a lot of things that everybody talks about when it comes to art is very objective stuff. They talk about how to shade, how to paint, how to make nice straight lines. A lot of very, very technical things that you can that are actionable, that you just go and do. But when you deal with the subjective things, when you start dealing with something subjective such as entertainment and trying to evoke feelings and that kind of thing, you can't just go and follow a bunch of checklist items to get something to get that subjective impact. In fact, I think the only thing that I can really know about making something subjective is that you won't find it on an objective list, on a list of objective things that you can tick off on a list. Because every time you've seen, like if you see, like, let's say, a comedy routine, somebody comes along and makes a great comedy routine, knocks them all dead, but that comedy routine alone, you can't just keep repeating that over and over. You can't have someone just come along and copy it and do all the exact same jokes and have people laugh at it. It just won't work.
And know the punchline.
Yeah, and know the punch, because everyone knows the punchline, and it's like, and it's not just like, well, if I see what that person does and I just imitate everything the way he does it exactly the same, I'm going to get the same great results. It's not going to work out that way. And then another thing I found is that when it comes to, say, if you're going to tell a story, if you're going to give someone, some entertainment, well, for one thing, we're dealing with illusions. So at the end of the day, this stuff is all pixels on a canvas. It's all digital. It's not real. It's all an illusion. And when it comes to, say, working in perspective and you're working on an illusion, one of the first things you have to do when you want to draw in perspective is you have to fool yourself into thinking you're no longer looking on a flat piece of paper. You actually have to be the first person sucked into the illusion so that you can make the illusion better and you can really feel like you need this feedback loop of knowing, okay, this is looking a little too flat, and if I just adjust it this way, it makes it pop out a little bit more, and it's not quite, I need to steer the form this way, I need to steer the form that way. There's this careful tuning, this constant feedback loop. It's like when you're driving, you got to look out the window, you got to see where you're headed, you got to, you can't tell someone to drive somewhere by giving them step-by-step directions like you'd get on a GPS locator, right? In 50 meters, turn right. What if there's a car in your way? What if someone's crossing the street? So you can't just rely on these step-by-step instructions, which a lot of the stuff that you get, on these tutorials are always these step-by-step instructions. You need to know how to observe and then figure out, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to change things? And so to tie that back into the making things entertaining and being able to say something with your art, it's kind of the same way, is that you have to, if you want to make someone, if you want to make sad art, like you actually have to make yourself sad in the first place. You have to think of a scenario that makes you sad, because that's the beginning of being sucked into the illusion. And you've got to start thinking about what it is that you're going to draw, not necessarily how you're going to draw, but you're going to have to think of the sad ideas or the happy ideas or the exciting things. You're going to have to think about like exploding buildings and having a parachute off of that stuff and having like chunks of rock flying all around you, and there's all this exciting stuff. And then you got to figure out, well, what angle am I going to shoot it from, and how am I? And as you're working with it, if you're not feeling excited as you're drawing an exciting piece, right? If you're trying to draw an exciting piece, it's just not going to come across. People will know. Like, how many times have you watched a television show that just did nothing for you? Just wasn't funny, wasn't exciting. You ever get that? You ever go on like watch like a movie and it was just boring? More often than not. Yeah, it happens a lot, right? And the thing is that these people who make these shows, they're being paid a lot of money to do these kinds of things. They hire a lot of rental, they get a lot of rental equipment and actors, and they stick them all together, and they budget for this stuff. But somewhere along the line, I don't think they were really thinking about making the thing entertaining. And in the end, all they want to do is just shoot the damn film and then go home. And they're not really, their heart's not in it. And I think this happens all the time, is that anytime you try to just, follow the checklist of things and lights, camera, action, here we go, you're not necessarily going to get instant entertainment. You're not going to get it unless you really are sucked into the idea, and you're really like thinking, oh man, that would be like really exciting, or I got to show them this scene, and it's going to be right. You're going to tell them about this thing. You're going to show them and present your idea, which is exciting to you, and try to find a way to to really tune into it and keep it fresh when you make the art. Because I think that one of the things about art is articulation. Art is the ability to take the emotions and the way that you feel about a thing, which is sitting only in your head. We're not telepaths, and so we need to be able to articulate these feelings. We need to be able to kind of freeze them and catch them like lightning in a jar. And that's what the drawing is. The drawing is that's the jar. That's the jar, but it's not the lightning. And so you can talk about all the step-by-step stuff about how to, get the jar and how to prepare to capture lightning, but it's not the lightning.
Yeah, I agree. I always think of it as art is just a language. And if you're writing, it's one language to convey an idea. And if you're drawing, it's another language. It's another vehicle to get something across.
Yes.
And then there are people who sort of obsess over the technicalities, and I feel like it's a bit like obsessing over grammar. It's fine, but it's not the point.
It's actionable though. That's why. It's the allure of the actionable, because it's like very often people just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it, and then I'll have some great results, and that's the problem, right? Is that people love things that are easy, easy to figure out what you have to do. It's like, just tell me to chop wood. Just give me the axe and point me to the wood, and I'll just start wham, 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 wham. Like, I just can't wait to throw my efforts into a thing and get great results. But art's kind of not like that. Art does require effort, but...
I mean, in like atelier methods, it kind of is that. And it's sort of like, that's why ateliers have such dramatic results, but it's so geared towards kind of drawing what you see, that if someone's like, okay, now draw that thing that you did, or paint that thing from imagination, well, I can't, but I can do anything from reference really well.
Right.
So, yeah, I think there are methods that are a bit more, I don't know what you'd call it, streamlined or academic, but they do have limitations.
Yeah. Like, I think...
So, yeah, go ahead.
I think that stuff is valuable. It is valuable and necessary. It's indispensable. Like, along the way, you're going to need those skills. But it's not the end all. Like, here's what I find. Is that when I want to capture ideas, if I want to draw and I want to do things where, let's say I want to make entertainment, and let's say I want to draw cool and exciting things, I must not have the technical stuff at the forefront of my mind, because the funny thing about ideas is that they don't last very long. They got to be captured real quick. Otherwise, they kind of fade away, they crumble, and they vanish from your head. You kind of forget, what was so exciting about that. It fades away like a dream. And so the problem is that if you're really, really into, if you're really into the technicalities, you're going to lose sight of it. You're going to lose sight of that lightning. You're going to lose sight of the lightning. The lightning will fade. The lightning will be gone by then. So what I find is that it is necessary to have skill to spare. So what I mean by having skill to spare, or the technical skill to spare, means it's like figure skating. Think of figure skating or ballet dancing. And you see the Olympics, and you see these Olympic figure skaters. And they look like, when they do their dances, like they're weightless. They land these crazy jumps, and they spin and they jump in the air, and they land these things, and they make it look really, really effortless. And then, if you ever seen like their legs, they're like bundles of steel cables. I mean, they're really, really strong. And so they've got the extra strength and the skill to spare to be able to be focused on the performance and the emotional performance that they give. And it's kind of the same way when you want to draw entertaining things. If you want to draw entertaining things, you've got to have enough skill that it's not even on your mind. You don't even think about it.
Yeah.
And you can, if you need a straight line, you draw the straight line, and you're not even thinking, oh, my hand's shaking too much, right? It just comes out. The lines that you need just come out, and meanwhile that lets you focus on, the excitement of what you want to draw.
Yeah, it's practice versus performance, and when it becomes muscle memory, that's why
Familiar.
I've been thinking about this. How actually drawing what's easy should be what you draw when you show people stuff. Like
Yes.
the stuff you draw for people should be what's easy, but that doesn't mean you only draw what's easy. It's like, no, there's the practicing side of it, and that is the difficult. Okay, I'm gonna figure something out, get out of my comfort zone, do stuff that is difficult, challenge myself, but I'm not gonna stay there. I'm not gonna be, or when I create, I'm not gonna be in that space, because if you are, it gets into the work. It feels like when people look at the work, it feels frustrated. They can kind of see your struggle.
Yes. Yes.
And things stiffen up a lot. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because no one wants to see a struggling figure like a figure skater who's trying to stay upright. It's like when you're struggling with perspective, or you're struggling with, I don't want to just say struggling with anatomy, but I would say more like you don't know what you're drawing. You don't know what you're trying to draw, or you're unfamiliar with it. People can sense the unfamiliarity. They can sense when you're having a really rough time with that, and your drawing becomes very stiff.
Right. There's actually a negative flip side, or potentially negative flip side to that, which is when you draw things that are easy and you do them masterfully, they look easy, and often that makes them devalued. Because people think like, well, I can do that. That doesn't look so hard. And I've heard a lot of this is actually genre specific, or I've heard about, for instance, people will look at a realistic painting and they'll say, that's good. That I can agree. That apple, that looks like an apple. That looks like it took a lot of work. And then they'll look at a guy who might be an animator who's been animating for 20 years and draws a simple cartoon character. It's like, that's easy. That's just cartoon stuff. Kids can do that. That's not impressive.
You are
but
correct.
The apple that looks like the apple, that's impressive. So sometimes,
here's what I found.
Oh, go ahead.
What I found is that if you're an artist, you're going to be one of the people, like, especially if you're an artist, you're going to be one of the people that says, oh yeah, that's easy. Or if you see something that's really, really hard, you start to appreciate the things that are really, really hard. And so what I found is that when it comes to the like just to large audiences, they're not really that concerned about how much effort you put into things. Like I found that a lot of times when I put up posts on, something like Tumblr or something like that, most of the posts that do really, really, really well are the ones that I don't put tons and tons of effort in, that I did really easily. Whereas the ones that I really busted my ass on, I don't get as many people like favoriting those. But what I do also notice is that the ones which I really bust my ass on, most of the people who favorite those things tend to be other artists that I've known.
Yeah.
So that's what I find is that if you do something which is pretty simple but looks good, looks good in the sense that it has mass appeal, then yeah, it's going to be very popular. You're going to get a lot of people who really like that kind of thing. Whereas if you bust your ass on something, sometimes you're not going to get as much of a feedback and response on it. But there'll probably be other artists who are like, yeah, that looks really good.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to actually selling your work or marketing your work, realizing that you don't necessarily want to be catering to an all artist market is very important. And it can be kind of difficult to make that
transition.
In the beginning, you are in the mainstream usually. If you're not trained, what you ingest is just what everyone else is ingesting. So you probably heard of Picasso before you heard of Sartre.
Yes.
Or Bouguereau.
In fact, Picasso had a saying, didn't he? Something about the hard part is learning. What was it? Learning how to draw like a kid. Like, something about having difficulty trying to draw like a kid.
However many years to draw like Michelangelo, and then however many years to draw like a kid again.
That's right.
The numbers.
That's right. Because the thing about the kid is that although the kid doesn't have skill, the kid still draws whatever interests him, right? The kid still draws with a sense of wonder.
Yes, and that's something that you then have to get back to thinking about, because when you do surround yourself with artists and go through this grind of I'm gonna get better because I'm lacking skill. Skill is the thing. I have a point. I have a message. I have something I want to say with my art. Usually we all start that way, and that's why we want the skill. But I don't have the skill, so I have to get good. But then in gaining the skill is its own thing. It's like, for instance, you could be a baseball player and realize, like, my swing's not very good. It's not very strong, so I'm going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
But then you could get addicted to working out, and now it's like, I'm a bodybuilder.
Yes.
What happened to the baseball thing? Like, oh no, I just work out. So yeah, so once you get beyond the point of okay, I just want to get skill, and now you're starting to create art for, or try to pursue skill for the sake of getting skill,
yeah.
because then you'll be respected by these other artists.
Yeah.
Then it gets kind of tricky. And that's not necessarily bad, because that's kind of what happens in universities and any other thing where you're with peers and you're all trying to get better. It's like, okay, that can be productive and stimulating.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to, okay, now I have the skill, but there's always more skill to be gained.
Yes.
So it's like,
there's always.
I can lift. I wanted to lift 200 kilos, and now I can do that. But should I go for 205? Should I go for 210?
Or in my case, it's like, yeah, I've gotten the look that I was aiming for, and then I look on ArtStation and I'm like, damn, that guy, I like the way that guy draws. I wanna learn that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
There's always somebody who's drawing in some like unusual new way. They're doing something, that you're not, that you haven't done, and yeah, I mean, I think there is such thing as being over prepared. Or trying, spending your entire life preparing and not actually going out and doing, doing any art. Actually, yeah, you have to go out and climb the mountain. You have to
also forgetting, like, just because you're impressed by something doesn't mean you have to do it.
No,
like, that's the other thing. You can be impressed with someone's voice. It doesn't mean that's your voice. That's their voice, and it's like, wow, that's a beautiful voice. But I have my own voice, and it's my job to make my voice sound as good as it possibly can.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, sorry.
No, that's absolutely right.
One question. We have a bunch left.
No problem.
Okay, let's.
These are the fun questions. These are the good questions. These are like some deep and meaningful questions that I'm sure a lot of people like. To me, like, I almost think of them as like if you've ever played a video game, like, I don't know, Path of Exile or Diablo, and you spend a while just ranking up, just leveling your character. And then you're going through all the starter gear and all that stuff, and then you're in the end game, and your build's finally coming together, and you're finally getting to see the potential of your, like, these are like end game questions. So yeah, I'm sure they're very, very exciting, and it may be a while before people get to, before these questions really hit them. But they want to know now.
Yeah, but then they patch the game and it all turns to shit.
They nerfed this gun and they nerfed that weapon and they nerf incoming. Yes. What's the next one?
The next one is, what's your favorite anime girl? That's from Yevsan. I don't have one, so I can't answer this.
I think my favorite anime girl would be Komi-san. So I have to find. I'll find it on like Manga Park.
Okay.
And
meanwhile, I'll just go to the next question. By Avery Hodge, what is your favorite thing to draw or paint?
Tits. Actually, no, that's not true. It's that's not true. That's impossible. So a lot of times, it's actually the figure, right? So I do like to draw the narrow waist and thick butts and the legs and small chest and I should say small torso, but like big tits. So like there's like a combination of things. So it's never just one part of the girl. It's kind of like there's a certain body type that I like to draw. And that's what I really enjoy. So, yes, that's what that's probably what got me into drawing in the first place. Anyway, so it's like this is good. This is like now I'm at that level where it's like there's Komi-san, which you can see on my screen. She's kind of the thing about this character is she looks like the cool beauty, But the thing is that she's actually very, very bad at communication. So she's like extremely shy. So that's what I like about this character. You know, I like any character which has like a real like a big gap in them. And by a gap, I mean there's contradictions. So you would have a character who is, let's say, a real, you know, brilliant rocket scientist girl or woman or whatever, and then at the same time really clumsy, you know, or something like that, right? Like there's that other flip side to them. There's a contradiction.
I've heard this about engineers a lot.
Why is that?
They tend to be extremely good in a thing, and then quite incompetent in other things.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, it's Gatmoe. Exactly. Yes, as far as was saying, it's Gatmoe.
Okay. All right. Nua572 asks, how do you make your art more realistic?
How do you make it more
realistic?
Realistic. Well, actually, let's define what real. Like, what does it mean when something is realistic? So, I mean, we can look at things like objective realism, and we can look at, you know, how do things look in real life? And so, if you want to make things look more like, you know, if you want to make it so that your art more closely matches objective realist things that you can see, you know, that are objectively realistic, then there's nothing like actually drawing from life, taking a thing and you know, putting it in front of you and drawing it. But I should probably give it maybe a better, like a little bit more of an in-depth to that, because let's say you wanted to do something that couldn't be easily drawn. Let's say it's an explosion. If you wanted to draw like a volcano erupting, and obviously you can't go and plot a trip out, you know, to go and stand near an erupting volcano because it's very dangerous. But there's, you know, footage that you could get. You can go on YouTube and you can find some of this footage of these kinds of, you know, volcanoes erupting. And if you want to say deal with, let's say, water, you know, water splashing at a fountain, again, there's, you know, video references you get from, let's say, the slow motion guys, and they would be like, you know, spraying water and popping water balloons and that kind of stuff, and then they would be slowing it down. And what I'm trying to get at is that not only do you start looking at things in real life, but you also should start studying actual footage of things, because real things that are real, there's one thing to make something where a painting where you can closely copy what you see is in front of you. It's another thing to actually understand the physics behind a certain thing, to understand, you know, why does the water splash this way? Why does the glass break this way? Why does, you know, if you see any of their, you know, slow motion firearms and slow motion explosions, you're like, wow, what's actually happening with the fluid dynamics? And there's realism that goes beyond just a still image. There's realism that you can see within physics. And I think that the more that you understand what's going on there, the easier it is. The more you know about your subject, the easier it is to make it, you know, to draw it in a real fashion. Like, some people would ask me, how do I draw clothing? You know, how can I do a better job with this clothing and these clothing wrinkles? And I found that one of the best ways to do that is actually get something like, there's a piece of software called Marvelous Designer. And this is a piece of software which is used specifically for making clothing, making garments and clothing, and tailoring your own clothing for video game characters. And it has real-time cloth and fabric simulation, and you literally have to work with a 2D pattern, just like a tailor would, and you have to cut out the pieces of fabric, and you have to tell it where to stitch the fabric, and you stitch around your character, you hit play simulation, and it drops the fabric on them, and it, you know, it wraps around the character, and it drapes, and it flows, and it wrinkles, and you can pose the figure. And just working with the simulation, you start to really understand how the fabric behaves. You start to really get the idea of what happens if I bend the arm this way. What will the cloth do? So the one thing I can say about the most crucial part of being able to draw more realistically, or being able to handle realism, is you really have to know it. You have to understand it. You have to experience it.
Yep. That's what I would say too. If you want to make your art more realistic, look to reality, and that doesn't mean you stop at reality, because you can, like, realistic can not, like, okay, kind of like likenesses. If you want to make a likeness, you make it just look like the thing, but then if you caricature it, you get even more likeness. and that's sort of, one could argue, that's distorting reality, but I think it's more enhancing what you see, and you can do that with realism too.
Another thing I should probably show you is that I believe that we very much have a filter on our minds, and this filter means that we filter out detail. I'm just going to show you this one image that I did a while ago. This is like 2009, and it's a study from life of a piece. It's basically a hunk of tinfoil. I took tinfoil out of my toaster oven, wadded it up just a little bit, and started painting that. And there's a reason I did this, is because for most people they skim. A lot of people have a habit of skimming, meaning that they see something and they think, oh yeah, I understand it, and then swipe, they swipe past it, and they don't really study it. They don't really carefully understand it. So when I set out to draw this hunk of tinfoil, it's like I had to draw this piece of tinfoil such that it's like I would look over and I'm like, yeah, that's the same piece of tinfoil. This is like a portrait of that piece of tinfoil. It's just like how we try to draw people and we're trying to draw them in a recognizable fashion, right? That piece of tinfoil, I had to capture that individual hunk of tinfoil, and that meant that I had to slow down. I had to slow down, and I had to really carefully figure out, okay, how wide is it? How tall in relation to the speaker that it's sitting on top of? Where are the biggest creases? Where are the biggest creases? And then where are the sub creases and sub wrinkles? And it was a very slow and methodical process. And I did this to force myself to slow down and not skim. And that's another thing I can say about trying to draw realistically, is that I know that everyone wants to do speed paintings and they think, oh, gotta go fast. And they see people who go and they draw on YouTube and they keep watching these sped up videos. They watch these videos which have been sped up 12 times. And they watch, speed painting, and they watch, people who quickly draw because, it's entertaining. But they don't realize that, to draw this hunk of tinfoil, it took hours. It took hours to do it. And I think people don't realize just how long some of this stuff can actually take. And you just slow down. And I think it's better to do a good job than a fast job. Speed comes when you do it many times over. When you with familiarity, you'll gain speed. But you shouldn't aim for speed at the start. You should aim for getting the job done right.
I agree 100%. That's true. And I think a lot of, in terms of YouTube videos, especially now, there's a bit of a change where things have kind of shifted to being more about entertainment, and this whole be a YouTuber thing has kind of bled into art, I feel now, more than it did before.
Be a star. Be entertaining and a star.
There wasn't much reason to make videos other than, well, I just want to teach something, I guess. Because I know you started way back when, and so did I. So when we made videos, it's not like we knew, hey, we're getting some kind of paycheck, or there was nothing there for you. So whereas now it's like, well, I could be YouTube famous. And
I could monetize and blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
And to this day, I still haven't really monetized many of my videos. If there are any that are monetized, I'll probably, and someone were to tell me, I'd go back and demonetize them, because that was just never my intention, right? I always felt that for me, doing this kind of thing was just a way of keeping a record, so that if I ever suffered a brain injury, I could just go back and I could at least leave some notes for myself. So that, that's why it's kind of like an archival thing for posterity. And I also felt that, why not? So other people might be able to actually make use of the stuff that I'd learned. Now, in terms of being a star, I mean, look, hey, you want to be a star, go for it. Cause it's a, whatever. At least it gives you a purpose. It's better than trying to be famous. I think is probably a lot more productive than, I don't know, just trying to play video games all day. You could do far worse things with your time. And maybe, I guess, if you had that YouTube fame, it may be of use to you later on. That's great. That's fine. Like, I don't have a problem with people being YouTube famous. It's not for me. It's too much of a microscope. I'm very much a recluse, and yeah, it's like,
right. Yeah, my thing was
it's just not for
about
me.
Judging it in and of itself, like, but more considering it from the viewer's perspective, where if you are watching something that is made to primarily entertain you, by people who just want to be famous, sometimes the information you're getting is not the best. So just take it with a grain of salt. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm going to get in trouble here by saying this, but it's more, think of the motive for why someone is doing something and then decide whether it's good to invest time.
I would say try it out. Fine, go for it. Try it out. But try to figure out whether it works for you. And if it doesn't work for you, then find a YouTuber and just say, hey, I'm having a little bit of trouble with this method that you've shown me. Do you think you can clarify and maybe what's going wrong? Like here's an example of, like, take a screenshot of it. Here's an example and try to. You can write a video response even. If you can capture your screen, you can say, I'm having difficulty. Do you think you could help a bro out? I think for whatever reason that they made the video in the first place, I think it can still be a positive thing if you still try it out and see if it works for you or not. But the thing is that don't just mindlessly follow is what I'm trying to say. Don't just mindlessly do it and think that it's going to make you a better artist. Even the stuff that I give you, right? It's like, there's a certain way to do it and there's ways to fail it. And in the end, I think that no matter, for everyone who's actually making an effort to try and get good at this stuff, good for you. And you should always, always be, try to keep a grasp on whether the stuff is actually whether you're getting better or worse. And like, don't just spend like a year doing a thing and then, wasting time.
Yep. Okay, Libertarian Izzy asks, what would you say to the person who says digital art doesn't have the same soul or character that can be achieved with traditional media?
Man, I was thinking of like, there's the Henry Rollins. Has anyone ever seen like the Henry Rollins thing about techno music, right? Or like the one where it's like they're not artists because no one knows how to play a guitar, right? It's like, I get it, like people will say that there are people who are out there who are naysayers of digital art, and they'll say that it doesn't have the same soul or whatever, and I'm like, in the end, it's all an illusion. It's either pixels on a canvas, or it's going to be graphite on paper, or in the end, it's never the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's never the actual thing. It's everything that we create is still an illusion, and all of these things are just mediums, ways to store the idea. They're just ways to store the notion, and so it doesn't really matter, what you use to capture this stuff. Like in the end, the whole reason of doing art is because we're not telepaths. We have ideas, and we can't transmit them through the meat prisons of our minds because we have to grab it somehow. And I don't really care what you use. Like, as long as you're not having to, I don't know, slay people and use their blood to paint on the canvas, as long as you're not actually having to hurt anyone to create your artwork, I don't really care what you use, what your medium is. It's just whatever medium you use that gets you to make lots and lots and lots of artwork and makes the best artwork, and it really is the best substitute for telepathy that you got, use that. And I don't think it will cheapen or worsen your art in any way. Like, I know that right now they've got VR headsets and these VR wands. I've seen this stuff. It's really cool. I've seen like Glenn Keane. You guys all know who Glenn Keane is. The guy's like a Disney animator, worked on like Rapunzel, and he was using like VR goggles and one of these like wand setups, and he was like painting. He was painting in 3D space. Like this system, it gives you perspective, like just on a silver platter. You don't even have to worry about perspective. You're drawing virtual reality and that kind of 3D stuff. And yeah, it's like it makes it easier, but I don't know. I don't see any need to go and sour grapes and come along and limit people from finding new ways to express themselves. And I think in the end, what ultimately matters is your idea any good, and is it entertaining in the end?
Yeah. I think there's one thing I would say to in favor of the traditional. It's not like traditional has more soul or anything, but there is this thing that I've noticed when you see oil paintings in person. It is different. It is a different experience, primarily because you have light passing through oil and then hitting pigment and then bouncing back into your eye, and that, like, oil paintings change throughout the day as light hits it. Like in the morning they look a certain way, at night they look a certain way. Just a lot can happen with oil that is interesting.
Yes.
But that's more just a quality of that material.
Yeah.
I don't think soul. I think soul comes from you. Like,
Yes.
what did you put into it? Because you could do that same thing with, isn't the oil nice, by just squeezing out a tube of paint, coating some varnish, and then putting it up, and it's like, yes, it changes. That's cool. You've got a natural gradient because you're looking at something that is big, perhaps. But that happens with a wall as well. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I like just if we just flip it around on the other side of things, like just imagine if you were like put yourself in like Leonardo da Vinci's shoes, or like, you know, Raphael or any of those Renaissance artists. Like, just imagine if you were to show them this Cintiq or an iPad Pro, you know, and they're like, wait, I don't have to deal with like mixing paints and stuff. Like, I just hit this palette here and I get the color right out of it, and I don't have to wait for the drying times. Like, oh my God, like they would go crazy. They'd be painting that stuff like nonstop. They'd be like throwing off the chains, and it's like, oh my God, this stuff is so easy. And so, you know, like I think digital is great. Like, it just makes the stuff easier. And I think what people are, I think one of the things that people want artists to do is they want artists to struggle. They want artists to have a really, really hard time of this stuff. That's what they want. And just because, you know, there's less struggle with an art form, I think that's the things they're probably they're conflating soul with struggle. They want you to, you know, because you didn't have to struggle for it, you know, it doesn't have as much soul.
There's also the case of just like those people that enjoy watching people juggle a lot of balls or spin plates or something. It's just like, this is hard to do, and therefore I can appreciate it being done by a person. And the harder it is, the more I will appreciate it. But then there's like, yeah, but where do you draw the line? I mean, if I draw this beautiful painting blindfolded, is that better than if I had drawn it without the blindfold on? Like,
well, yeah.
No, it doesn't matter. But you might be more impressed. You might be like, "Oh my God, yeah! Look at this painting. I could do better than that.
Well,
like,
what if
6-year-old could do that?
What if it was we get a bear? If we get a bear
with his nostril.
If we get a bear to paint, right? Like, it doesn't even matter if the bear makes like a stick figure. You're gonna be like, oh, a bear painted that.
They got elephants to paint.
People are not going to care about the quality. They're going to go crazy about the fact that an elephant painted it.
Right,
so,
and I think that's just a different thing entirely. It's like, okay, so you're impressed. You just want to be impressed by stupid human tricks in a way.
Yeah.
Because for me personally, I've never really liked that. Like, I understand that people do, but for me, when I see like people do amazing things, and it's like, this takes a ton of dexterity. Try as I might, I can't get excited for it. It's just like, yeah, but now what? Like, and then, okay, yeah, you were on a unicycle and you were juggling and spitting flames.
Right.
And, like, what did you make? Yes, humans can do amazing things. But that's personal opinion. I'm not saying it's stupid or anything.
I just think that, sure. I mean, if you want to take on the challenge, you can. It's just that there's going to be a whole bunch of artists who just don't care. They're just going to be like, yeah, you know, I'm just going to use my iPad Pro or my Cintiq, and I'm going to bang out some amazing work. I'm going to throw it on ArtStation, and then I'm going to get hired by a video games company that's going to pay me an ass ton of money. And like that's just what's going to happen. Like, technology is just going to move on whether you want it to or not. It's going to go along, you know, and you're just going to have to either, you know, you're just going to just deal with it. Just live with the fact that, you know, we're all going to get dragged along by technology, kicking and screaming one way or another. Like, the one thing I can say about traditional that was good from a training standpoint was that it makes me really think. You can't just erase easily. You can't erase. There's no layers, and, you know, maybe it is a little bit messier, and you have to think a little bit more. I think in that regard, it is good. It is good as a training medium because I think sometimes people don't care about their lines. They throw away their lines. They're careless. And I think that traditional is good in the sense that it trains you to be careful. And it trains you to aim your lines. That's what I think traditional is good
disciplined.
for. Yeah, it trains discipline.
It trains patience. Like with painting, traditionally, if you fuck up, that's a lot of work to fix.
Yes.
Whereas digitally, undo. So when you're painting traditionally, you have to consider things. You have to slow down. You have to think. You have to decide, like, is it really important for me to make the stroke I'm about to make? And that's not a bad thing to have in digital either. Like that is good.
A lot of the discipline carries over.
Yeah, pretty much with every single dogmatic approach, I can think of arguments for and against anything you tell me. If someone tells me, like, hey, I think never using eraser is the best way to learn, I could make an argument for why that is true and also an argument for why that is absolutely not true. And I have the older I get, the more it's like I am seeing that there are no absolutes.
That's right.
In art,
there's costs and benefits.
Yeah,
there's costs and benefits.
Just,
there are no solutions, just costs. Yeah, it's a trade-off. You're trading. You're just trading, and that's it. And so I would say do them both. Do them both so that you get both experiences. So when people say, should I do this or should I do that? And I say do both. Get good at both.
Yeah. All right. Jada Houston or Yada Houston, I'm not sure, asks, is it bad if you get frustrated and tear up your work because it doesn't look the way you want it to?
Gosh. I mean, I should show you this. You guys might have seen this, like my last video, which was about this this thing called a boogie board. So this thing it's a board which I can draw on. It's not digital, but it does use electricity to erase it. And that's the thing, is that there's no erase or undo on this. Or it does have an erase, but the erase is not that great. There is also there's no undo on it. And the thing is that there's a button where you hit it and poof, the drawing's gone. And so I do a lot of throwaway drawings. And I don't feel that it's necessary to I don't think of my art as always precious. I don't like to hang onto art unless it actually came out. But until I like it. Like I make many attempts. I use this thing a lot. And I do lots and lots and lots of drawings. Enough to the point where I don't really care if I just hit that big button and nuke it. In fact, there are so many times where I'll draw and I'm like, you know what? I wish I made that first line a little bit lower, and I'll just hit the button and nuke the whole drawing, right? Like, that's just I just don't, like I say, it's like I don't worry about whether or not a drawing has to be permanent. Like, not every, like, whenever I start a drawing, I think I can throw it out at any time. And I don't think of it as being a thing that has to linger. In fact, one of the reasons why I switched to a boogie board is because I didn't want to have tons and tons of paper just building up like toxic waste, tons of bad drawings, like this, or even good drawings. I'd rather have it all on a hard drive. And then I like the fact that if I use TV Paint, it's like I just say new frame, and anytime if I don't like the way a drawing's going, I either nuke it or I make a new frame. And just understand that, you know what, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make tons of drawings that don't come out the way that you like them, and start another one. Start another one. And if you can find a medium where you don't even care about the fact that there's a paper expenditure, that's even better. And another thing I find is that usually my first drawing is never like if I do like an actual illustration, if I set out to do an actual illustration, very often I might do a drawing and it won't turn out the way I want. I'll look at it and I'll say, I kind of wish I drew this part, a little wider and that part a little narrower, and I should have, moved this here and moved that over there. And so what I do is I do this thing called a knockback. I can semi-erase the drawing, and then I can continue working on top of it, and I can draw the lines where I think they should go. This is one of the wonderful things about working with digital. You can also do it with boogie board, is that you can do this thing where it's like, I'm gonna move some lines over just by doing a knockback, and I'll redraw it. No, like redrawing, I think is a huge part of the design process, and maybe not so much in terms of getting frustrated and tearing it up. Just understand that sometimes I do the first drawing knowing it's going to be a failure. It's like a crash test. It's like whenever you make a car, whenever people design cars, the first car is not the one that gets sold to people. In fact, you're going to have to take that first car and you're going to have to crash it. You're going to have to see where does it crumple. Oh crap! The steering column wound up in the driver's compartment, and is going to wind up cutting off a guy's leg. Well, you learn that by crashing the car, and then so what you do is you reinforce a certain area, and then you crash it again, and you remake adjustments, and you crash it again until finally the car can be deemed, until the car passes code, then the car is good. And so failure. I think a lot of this drawing stuff, you have to get used to the fact that your first drawings are investments. They're all failures. They're good. Your first drawings are very often going to be failures. I call them literally throwaway drawings, and you do them with the intent to find the mistakes. Do your first drawings to find the mistakes, to find out where things go wrong, and then you just knock them back, and then you fix those mistakes and keep going. So the thing is that you're going to fail. You just don't know how you're going to fail. And so you have to make the attempt. You have to just it's par for the course. In fact, I think that a lot of the ways in which I draw, and like when I tell people to draw, like I just say, don't worry about this line or that line. I say draw, a few little broken lines. Don't try to draw one super smooth, clean stroke. Yeah, after I go and I show people how to draw super smooth, clean strokes, I now say, break the line up. Don't try to draw really, really nice lines. Just try to hem the shape in, and get an approximation, because you're going to be knocking the thing back anyway, and then you can figure out, I need the line to really go, over here, and I need it to curve this way or that way. So, yeah, I think it's good to have a way of drawing that is fault tolerant, that it embraces the fact that you make faults, so that you can see. You won't know exactly where the line really belongs until you see where it's wrong.
Yep. I feel like it's also a bit like, okay, if you had $10 and let's just say they were all in coins, and then $1 falls out of your pocket and falls on the ground, you might be like, okay, I gotta go find that and chase it down the street. But if you have $1 million, not all in coins, because that would be very heavy, and $1 falls out, you're not going to give it a second thought. So just mileage changes things a lot. I remember I was watching, this is many, many years ago, I watched an Ian McCaig Numan video where he was drawing like a mermaid in space. I think it was like a Little Mermaid. And he drew an arm, and it was a beautiful arm. And then he just erased it. And I was thinking, no!
Is that like Arnold Schwarzenegger? No!
Giving it to me!
That's right.
Framed that. That was awesome. That was better than I could, and anything I could do. And I just felt like, how could he just erase something that was so good?
He'll just draw it again.
He just drew another one. And he's like, oh, maybe you do this, maybe you do that. But after you've done it a lot, it's a bit like if you were writing and, you wrote like, there was a big dog, and you scratch out big and write, no, there was a large dog. Like, you just scribbled out that word and wrote a different word. Yeah, yep. Well, it's not hard to write. And that's how drawing becomes, where like at the point I'm at, I can understand Ian McCaig, because it's like, yeah, the arm's in the wrong spot, or it doesn't look quite right. Who cares? Just draw.
You need to erase.
It's not hard.
You need to erase the things that are wrong to make room for the things that are right. You can't be paralyzed by things that like don't let your work paralyze you from moving forward. And yeah, I find that that's often what happens, is that people will first try to make really, really smooth, perfect lines right off the bat. And then when those lines are later discovered to be in the wrong place, then they don't want to erase them, because they spent so much time, and it's so hard drawing that perfect line, and it's precious to them. And you need to gain you need to be able to be so competent that even the good stuff is disposable.
Yes.
Because you're going to be throwing away a lot of that stuff anyway.
Yeah, and if you get used to, I mean, it's kind of hard to say, like, oh, get used to it early on, because I wasn't, and I think it's just a phase you go through. Like, you go through the phase where everything's precious, and then you learn not to be that way. And I think in Richard Schmid's book, he talks about how his drawing instructor or painting teacher, he would, if there was a mistake, he'd just like paint over the canvas, and then the students would be like, "Oh my God, you killed all my work." And it's like, yeah, because you can't be precious about it.
That's right.
And I think that's fine, but I can see how it would be hard for people. But
It was hard for me once. It used to be hard.
The less it's bad. It's not so bad eventually. And if you get used to, like, if you can actually kind of like the feeling of like, I'm not going to tolerate anything that's not to my standard on the page.
Yeah.
And if it's not to my standard, it dies. Like, boom, it's gone.
See ya.
And you can kind of be proud of that. I think it's pretty helpful because then you just keep
Very satisfying. It eventually becomes satisfying.
Yeah.
You get kind of a satisfaction where it's just like, yeah, this thing was getting in the way, and I'm now like the drawing looks better without it, or it's like, oh, now we can actually move on. How nice! Like, yeah, it's kind of satisfying after a while.
Yeah. What I also think is that there was a stage where in the early years when I was drawing, it would be a lot of it felt like luck and random, and like, oh, I drew an eye and it actually turned out good. I have no idea how I did that, so I can't fuck with it because I can't do it again.
Right.
And I think the solution to that is no. You don't know anything until you can do it again. Like, if you do it once or twice, you don't know it. And
it's a fluke.
I talk to people,
don't rely on flukes.
Yeah, I sometimes talk to people who will say like, yeah, I get perspective. Like, okay, you do you do it? It's like, no. I mean, I read it, I get it, I understand. Like, you don't then. Like,
it's like you watch
in a theory, understanding. Like, yeah, I get it. That's not getting it. And I think the same for drawing. Like, oh, I can draw cool. I look at my sketchbook. There it is on page 37. That I did it really well. Can you do it again? No, but it's good. Don't you see? It's right there. I don't think that works. It's like, no. You have to be able to do it again. So I think it's important to, when you can do something, to do it again, do it again until you can't not do it well.
Right.
Until it's like,
you actually have
hard for me to screw up.
You actually have to consciously do it the wrong way when you want to do it. You want it to be wrong.
Yeah.
It's like it's so ingrained into like the right way is ingrained into your habits that you have to consciously do it wrong if you want to do it wrong.
Yeah. And that's where iterative drawing, I think, really shines, is that it forces you to repeat the good things and not the bad things. I think one of the worst things you could do, and this again goes to the whatever point you have, I can find the opposite, and it's probably true as well. But what happens if you practice a lot, but you're constantly practicing your mistakes? You will make mistakes a lot because you're training yourself to draw things poorly.
Yes.
So you got to be careful about that too. Like, even being sloppy is practice. Being lazy is practice. Being afraid to make changes is practice. You're just getting practice at
habitual.
Being afraid.
It's habitual. It becomes a part of your behavior.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Ethan Walker asks you specifically, Mark, how do you feel about Stefan Molyneux?
I follow him and I like to watch his videos. He's I like his philosophy, and yeah, he's had a pretty big impact on me. Smart guy. Very, very smart guy.
All right. Rich Art asks, how good is it to take a break for a blocking drawing mind? For a blocking drawing? I guess art block.
Oh.
You know, like falling in quicksand of solving ideas. So basically, how good is it to take breaks?
I think, okay, I know this much, is that when it came to art blocks, when I was doing a lot of study, when I was doing a lot of exercise, I never suffered an art block because I wouldn't have difficulty thinking about what am I going to draw next? Because in that case, I could just say, well, what am I bad at? And I could focus on that. So I never really had too much difficulty with art blocks in those cases. Now, if I had a problem where I couldn't think of something cool to draw that I wanted to draw and actually, sit down and make a piece, Well, then it means that, like, usually it means I just didn't have I wasn't inspired. There wasn't anything cool in mind that I had to draw. In fact, I find that if I perfect a certain way of drawing, after a while, I won't draw anymore because I feel like whatever piece I come up with is going to just turn out the same way anyway, so why even bother? So I think that is why very often I keep changing styles. I keep learning new ways to do things because that is how I get past art blocks. Because I find that usually if I keep drawing the same way, there's just no motivation. So I would say that art blocks usually are because you lack inspiration or motivation. Now, what else is there? I mean, there's learning skills, and then there's figuring out what you want to draw, and then there's actually sitting down and doing the drawing, right? So that means that if you're prepared, like, I guess a good example of this is cooking, right? Is that sometimes I just want to cook, but you know what? The meat's not marinated yet, hasn't been cut up and sliced on the wok. The wok's not even on and hot. We're out of oil. We don't have any onions sliced up, and none of the ingredients are ready. Like, there's a lot of prep that's required before I can actually turn on the wok and start frying something. Before I can actually start cooking. And I would think that very often drawing blocks are very similar, is that you're just ill-prepared. You don't have anything in mind to draw. You don't have the skills to do a certain thing. You're not taking care of yourself, and you're too tired, or, you've been staying up really, really late, or you've decided, you've poorly scheduled yourself so that, you're trying to draw just after you come home from work or school, and you've done all the homework, and now there's nothing left in your way, but now you're just dog tired and you can't even think straight. Like, there's lots of obstacles to art, and I think that art blocks are, could be any one of these things, and what you have to do is you just have to make sure that you're adequately prepared. You have to be in the right state of mind, the right state of body, and the right state of time, and that do whatever it takes, whatever it is that's stopping you from drawing. That is your art block, and you're gonna have to sit down and idea it and figure out how to get past it. But I think a break, I'm not trying to say that you have to be drawing art all the time, because I don't. There are certain times of the day where I'll draw art. I find that there are certain times of the day where I'm just bright and early and I feel really good, and my mind's very clear. Those are usually my best times to draw. There's certain batches of time which are really good for me to draw. And then there's other times where it's like I've drawn all day and now I'm tired, and now you know what? I could use a break. I could play some video games. If I'm tired, that's good video game time. But don't use the good art time for for video games, right? And don't use the good video game time for art, right? So, you do need to give yourself, you're gonna have to figure out with your schedule, what times of the day are good for you to do various things. And yeah, you got to work in times for you to be entertained and for you to relax and enjoy and be a human being and have showers and use the bathroom and eat and all those other things. You still, right? Because all of that stuff is to prepare yourself for the next day where you're going to draw.
Yeah, definitely. I think breaks are super important, and they seem more important the more experience I have, because it's like. It's easy to get into the feeling of I should be drawing and I'm not, and therefore whatever bad thing. Mm-hmm. You might think like, well, I'm a loser, I'm falling behind or whatever, but there's a state where it's not so good to be pushing yourself too much. But the opposite is true as well. Like, you don't want to be constantly like, well, I really should be drawing, but there's this new video game out and I really want to play it, and I've already put in a few hours, but I'm going to put in a few more. It's really a balancing. Like, when is it bad to take breaks? Well, if you're taking too many breaks for too long, then I don't think that's very good. But I think breaks are good. One thing that actually ties into is this. I don't know if it's a pretty big topic, but the topic of social media and art. And how social media, the way it's designed now, especially for people who are on platforms like Instagram or Tumblr, or they're trying to make images every day, that can lead to burnout pretty fast, just because you're not giving yourself a chance to rest. And I think it's the way social media is turning is not good. It's not artist or human friendly. It's good for the consumer. It's terrible for the creator, to be on this nonstop treadmill of I gotta produce. Most artists aren't like that. We have periods of energy and productivity, and then periods of rest. But if you're constantly like, no, I got to be on all the time, I think that's not great. And one solution to that is to do things in batches. When you're productive, make more than you need to, and then kind of crash. And have your like schedule things where it's like, okay, I can post all this week because I did 7 pictures in 2 days, and I don't have to worry the other 5 days. I can rest or I can do other things, but all my images that I have to post are done. I think that's much better than like every day. Oh, I got to post another one. Oh, I got to post another one. I got to do something else.
Yeah. Because I think that the social media also kind of has this a bit of a hamster wheel. It's like you just gotta keep on like. Oh man, it's like my problem with social media is that once I start scrolling, God, it's like it's so hard to stop scrolling because every time I scroll, it's like, or every time there's like a like or a favorite, it's like this little teeny endorphin rush, and you're constantly scrolling. You always want that, you want to post so you can get another like another like. It's like you're like Gollum, man. It's like I don't know. I'm not crazy about social media for that, but and besides I got kicked off of Twitter because I posted politics. So I got deplatformed from Twitter. So that's another thing. It's like I think the another reason why I'm not so crazy about social media is that you could spend years and years of your life building up a social media presence, and then you say the wrong thing and poof, it's like gone. And so
It's gone.
Yeah, it's like a lot of my like for me, like a lot of my I guess well, what do you do without social media? How do you get a job and all that kind of stuff? And surprisingly, a lot of I do get freelance work, and a lot of that is just by I go on Discord, I find communities that are into the art that I'm at, and I post a few examples, and then I find a few people who are willing to pay pretty well for work, and they keep me swamped, and that's all I need. Like I don't have to have thousands and thousands of people following me. Like my Twitter account had 1,000 people on it, never got a single job out of it. Maybe because I didn't push it or whatever. But that's the thing is like I think that I got a lot more work out of people that I sat down and had one-on-one conversations with than I ever did from a whole bunch of random followers.
Yep. Hey Bob, are you able to talk? People are.
Can you hear me?
Oh, you
Yes.
are able to talk.
Why weren't you talking?
How long have you been able to talk?
For a little while, but you guys were so into it that it
I'm
didn't.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, okay.
Sure, Bob. We're just gonna have you catch up and repeat all the things that you were wanting to say this whole time. I'm sure you were writing it down, right?
Oh yeah.
How
Sure.
do you feel about Stefan Molyneux?
What was the question?
All right. So,
It's the Bob Show.
okay. KDB asks, how long did it take for you guys to draw most figure poses from memory, and do you still use references now? That's a Bob question right there. That right there is a Bob question.
Changing something. You gotta repeat the question.
How long did it take for you guys to draw most figure poses from memory, and do you still use references now?
For me, sometimes it only takes a few seconds. I still use reference.
My
if
God,
it's
that's
something
too
that I
fast, man.
remember.
You know you're going to burn your screen. When you draw that fast, the screen, it cannot even... themselves cannot keep up. So what
Yeah.
you're doing is you're actually stressing out your hard drive, stressing the motherboard, and you're going to blow up your whole PC, the printer, everything is gone. You don't
that
want to be
happens.
drawing in couple seconds figure. Are you kidding me? You don't want to do that fast.
I've had to replace a lot of computers because of that.
So,
So I keep hearing my voice.
Oh,
is there an echo? Is anyone?
I hear your voice, but if you're hearing your voice, are you wearing headphones?
I am wearing headphones. Yes.
Are you watching the stream on any other windows? Because you might not have muted them.
I have it muted.
Well, then he's in the room with you, Bob. Your doppelganger is here.
Well, there are two. Yeah. Well, then again, you've muted your mic on the other one, so I don't know. Well, wait. That just means that you're not taking in mic input off of that one. It may not be muted in terms of the speakers.
The speaker.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Okay.
you might not have muted the audio out. You've muted the audio in, so it's not recording you twice, but you haven't muted the audio out.
Because the only way for any audio to get absorbed right now is through the laptop.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
But if
using
that,
a mic for it.
yeah.
Okay.
That
While Bob
accent
is
was
fixing
amazing.
his audio issues. Jada or Yada
Let
or
play
Yada
Flavatal.
asks, how do you overcome the obstacle of letting people see your sketchbooks?
Every single one of your drawings in your sketchbook has to be amazing, and then the obstacle's gone.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be that your sketchbook is the museum. You know, I mean, have you not seen any decent artists' work? They never have bad work. They never have, and they never write in their sketchbook. That's terrible. Like, if you're writing, what is that? A notebook? Is this your journal?
There's not
It's a sketchbook.
one single bad drawing in this in my sketchbook.
The word sketchbook has the word sketch in it. And what does sketch mean? It means highly finished drawing. A sketch it's not even a drawing, it's a painting. It's a highly finished, refined oil painting, and it's perfect.
It's perfect. Yeah.
That's what the word
Okay. All right. Hey, wait. I'll actually explain. So I use actually every single drawing that is in my sketchbook is really good. And the way that I do it is I use a thing called a friction pen. So friction pens are these erasable pens. They're thermally erasable. And so I'll do all of my rough drawings with a friction pen. And then, if the drawings aren't good, I'll erase them. And then if they are good, then I let them stay. And then I will ink them. And then I can use a torch lighter to get rid of the friction pen. And then the leftover ink stays. So yeah, every single drawing in my sketchbooks looks really, really good because I only tackle subjects which I know I can handle very well. Whereas if I'm just wanting to play around, I'll play around on my boogie board, or I play around digitally. So I literally managed to solve the problem of getting my sketchbook to the point where I can hand it to people and I'm not worried about what they're going to see in there. There's a way around everything.
Is Flavia here? She is here.
Yeah.
See? Anyway. Sound like you're dying.
I am.
You're dying. Oh no. Why?
I'm being suffocated by a cat.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. We're in different rooms because otherwise it will be an echo, and we won't be able to hear each other. That's why. Yeah, I think like when I see people who draw really nice or have really nice sketchbooks, I always wonder, do you have like two? Do you have one where you just
one where you have all the bad drawings
and then the other one where you actually make like nice work? But I think after a while, when you get more practice and you're able to kind of churn out the same things over and over again, things like presentation do become important, and they are things you can kind of work on where your sketches now look better. But that just comes through time. But I would say in the beginning, sketchbooks are for you, not for other people. That's what I personally think. It's for you to figure out whatever you want to figure out. There shouldn't be any judgment. There shouldn't be like, look at my sketchbook and judge it, because it's like, no, it's for you. It's your sketchbook. And then out of that, you could kind of find images you like, print them out or finish them up and then have like a portfolio or something, or it's like if
The
someone
portfolio
wants
is what you show to other people.
Yeah, exactly. But your sketchbook is for you, and to make it not for you, I think is a huge disservice. If you were like, well, I gotta make it perfect, and people are gonna see it, so I'm not gonna draw anything I have trouble with or something like that. It's like, well, geez, you've lost it. Then you've lost the point.
Yeah, I just use a boogie board and I just I do lots of disposable drawings, like, and I use that thing for experimentation. So for me, it's and to capture images off of that, I found I can just use a flatbed scanner, and I can just scan that thing in. So that's the other thing, is that you can actually work with a medium that is much even more disposable than the sketchbook. Something which, you know, if you can obliterate a drawing that you don't like, then that's good too. That's another way around it. And I found that, man, I kind of wish I had this thing sooner. I wish I had this thing like earlier in life, because then I could be doing tons more throwaway drawings.
Are they sponsoring you?
No, I just really like the damn thing. I just really like the damn thing. They should pay me, man, like for the amount of mileage.
All right.
Well, it's
I'd be
cheaper than getting an iPad.
Yeah, but iPads are amazing.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. But if you can't afford one, this is the next best thing.
Yeah. Well, yep, that's true. Or just anything you can get your hands on. Like, it doesn't have to be fancy if you're drawing and you're just drawing to get better. No one has to see it.
No evidence, no witnesses.
Isn't that what Michelangelo did? He burned all his bad drawings, his early drawings.
Man, just think of the paints that they were using back then, how much like heavy metals there were. Like, think of the smoke off of that. Holy crap.
Yeah.
It must have been like an environmental catastrophe every time he burned a painting. All the lead and cadmium and arsenic and...
IBS, having a small screen is a big problem when you draw in digital, ? So having a small screen is a big problem when you draw in digital?
Or is having a small screen a problem when you work in digital?
I think so. I think that's...
I think he's asking that as the interrogative. Well, actually, well, this is a 12-inch screen, so I guess, I mean, you could consider this to be a small thing. But at the same time, I'm like, if I need to draw a large curve, I zoom out, and that becomes a large curve. If I need to draw something really tiny, I zoom in, and then boop, and then it becomes... So a lot of times I find that I have like an ideal curve that I like to draw, that I'm just very, very familiar with. And if I need to draw larger and smaller curves, I literally just zoom in and zoom out, and I can rotate the canvas to get the curve that I need when I'm doing any kind of, you know, cleanup of lines. So it kind of becomes a moot point. And then I have another monitor, so I'm using dual display, and that other monitor, what that does is that allows me to, I've got a navigator up on this other monitor here, and that lets me, you know, kind of see the overall picture. So yeah, that's how I manage to not lose sight of things when I'm zoomed in on a little teeny monitor like that.
I don't know, Bob. What are you doing?
What?
What are you drawing, Bob?
What is it?
I see what it is.
What? What's wrong with it?
Absolutely nothing.
Is that a spoon? Is he trying to feed him, or is he cutting his...
Well, nothing's happened yet.
Yet being the operative word.
All right. Okay. Just a man asks, I have been working on a strange, different style. I have trouble making the females look feminine. Any tips?
Making females look feminine. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's kind of hard because I don't see I can't see your drawings. Like, if you actually posted an example, then I'd be able to look at it. Is it possible for people to post links?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think in YouTube, but I could be wrong. You can try.
You could try. I hope it doesn't like clobber you or anything.
Yeah. I don't know.
But I mean, whenever I draw, I mean, like there's the way that I draw women, which is like super duper exaggerated proportions. And I guess I use a lot of curvature. Lots and lots of curvature.
Yeah. I think there are certain features or things you can do, characteristics that make women look feminine. One of the things is don't overemphasize any details. You don't want to do that unless it's the eyes or the mouth. Like you want to minimize noses, ears, wrinkles for sure.
Waist to shoulder ratios.
Yep, that too. And then the eyebrows, you want to put them higher up than for guys. Usually if you put them too low, they don't look so feminine. But I think something interesting though is when you make like there's like a typical female thing where you put all the things like, oh, make them feminine, put all of that together, and then take one of them out and put a masculine one in there, and it's kind of interesting where it's like, it's got like kind of feminine everything except like the eyes are kind of masculine. It kind of works still. It just looks more unique, like a real person. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing to do as well. But yeah.
I'm suddenly thinking of Kill la Kill with what's the villain's name? I'm trying to remember.
Ragyo?
Huh?
Which one? Satsuki or Ragyo?
Satsuki, yeah, like Satsuki, like those eyebrows of hers.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of like angular. She's kind of angular and jagged, like just like her. She's got like the jawline. So yeah, she's got the beetle brows too.
Pretty interesting characters when you play around with stuff. Like learn the formula and then
You can
break it.
Yeah.
or screw with it because it doesn't have to be just that. But if you are having a problem, there are a bunch of things that you can do, like check the jaw as well. If you make too much of a jaw, it can look a bit more masculine. Ansh says, hi Sycra, I feel like when I draw women they look too masculine. I try to get the cheekbones rounded and eyes biggish, but it just seems too weird. It's not the only thing, just the eyes and the cheekbone. Head size in relationship to the neck. The general size and placement of features really matters. And one thing I would say is if you can figure out how to make the difference between a child and an adult, you pretty much, with the exception of the body, get the same thing for a feminine character. A lot of it is the same as the children thing, which is what you'll see in anime. Like pretty much every trick they use in anime is something that resembles a child more than an adult more. In most styles, not all of them, but a lot of it, where you maximize the cranium, make the eyes bigger, the nose smaller, you position the nose closer to the eyes in a way, you have a minimized distance from the nose to the chin, things like that. It all like very childish, which is why it looks cute, because that's what we're kind of programmed to think of as cute.
Yep.
All right, so the links don't work.
Ah.
Me Horror Show says, looking at Bunny is making me a furry. I think it's like those guys that some of the pastors in churches who say like, well, you can't have homosexual material because that if we look at that, we'll get gay. And it's like,
that's how it works.
That's how it works, dude.
It's totally how it works. You sure?
If looking at the bunny is making you a furry, I don't think it's the bunny.
Might be something else.
Yeah.
This came before the bunny. That's what they're saying. It's precondition.
Oh, I love that accent. Always gets me.
It's pretty good. It's like they made an entire culture around things that just sound funny.
It's a culture of trolls.
Thousands of years of history and culture and whatnot, and that's what it turns into. Boy. I have to keep flipping now, Bob, because I click on your image and then it's like, oh no, I'm gonna lose subscribers.
Oh, okay.
I've got his picture up like 24/7. Oh, it's gone.
Did you want to see it, Mark?
I was watching this the whole time, watching it and uncontrollably salivating. I don't know. I had dinner not that long ago, and so I'm inexplicably hungry all over again.
If you want an appetite, tune in.
Right.
Enrique V. Oliveira asks, how to find the equilibrium between a style and reality?
Who says there has to be an equilibrium? You can be completely unbound. You can go completely off the wall if you wanted to. Like, I think, I say this much, is that it's good to know reality so that when you break a rule, it's like it's on purpose. And I break lots of rules. I break them not just because I want to break them because I'm trying to be capricious, but because I'm like, usually when I break a rule from reality, I see that there's a certain thing which I notice from reality, and I'm like, I'm going to exaggerate the living daylights out of it.
Yeah. It's fun. It's a fun thing to play with how much you can push things. But I do think you got to start. Like, I don't think you've got to. Okay. So everything I say, I always think, I say something like, oh, you should start from reality. And then I know there are people who I admire who didn't do that. Who just sort of copied off stylization. And it's like, no, you got to start from reality. It's like, except when you don't. But I do think it's a good thing anyway. Like, it's a general tip to start with reality and then see how far you can push it.
Yeah. And like in this case, what I'm doing with these ridiculous, crazy hips is like, yeah, it's like I know that the hip to shoulder ratio is greater, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna like throw that out the goddamn window because that's hot. That's it's like.
And you can push it as far until you find it breaks. Like
until it breaks, yeah.
Interesting. Where is the line? Where does it go too far? When is it like, oh wow, this actually went too far? Like, I guess you can.
If you're still able to make it work, then congratulations. Like that's another thing. It's just not just figuring out where how far you can go before it breaks, but also figuring out how far can you push it and keep it working.
Yeah. And that also depends on who the viewer is, because what I found is when you talk to people who are probably older than 50, they have a lot of difficulty in general, from what my experience has been with anime. They can't see it the same way because they haven't grown up with it and they haven't sort of internalized like this is okay. So if they just see it, it's like, that looks weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
That looks very strange. So I think it really depends on that as well. So Flavia, she never grew up with Dragon Ball. And so the people in Dragon Ball look extremely odd to her, but they look completely normal to me.
They look like stroke face.
Yes. I don't.
Did you just say they look like they've got stroke faces?
No, I did not.
Stroke faces?
I did not.
That is what she says.
That's not true.
They've got the stroke faces. Like, that is not politically correct.
That's not true. I did not hit her. It's not true. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark. Oh, hi, Mark.
That's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not.
You're my favorite customer.
Metal Sphere Sprint says, do you think self-learning with books and practice, etc., is as effective as an art teacher? Depends. A book can be. I really like certain books a lot, and I feel like they've helped me a lot more than most art teachers. But an art teacher can do something a book can't, which is like tell you, hey, you know that thing you just did? Don't do that. Or
art teachers are more interactive.
Yeah, it's that.
But I would also say that a book and also teachers give insight. They don't give experience. And experience is really what counts for a lot.
Yeah, I think so too.
You can't get by without experience. And that just means you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to make a bunch of failures. You're going to have to try this. You're going to have to try that. Like, you can read all of the greatest books. You can read all the same books that I read and know all the things that I know, but that's just knowledge. It's not experience. So, yeah, just because you know a technique doesn't mean that you've got the experience and the familiarity of using it. Because I tell you, when I draw, it's not like every single bit of that knowledge that I've absorbed from a book is like streaming in at me and pummeling me in the face, and I'm having to juggle everything I've ever known. Like, no, it's like that stuff's like kind of it's influenced me on an instinctual level, you know. But that's it. It's not I'm not constantly thinking about all the things that I ever learned in a book.
Yeah,
Far from
I
it.
think better. Yeah, I do think the best teacher is just experience.
Yeah.
By far, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think teachers can be good too. I have like a few books that
Teachers and books will get you in the right direction. They give guidance, but not experience. Yeah, and it's guidance that often comes from experience, but there's nothing like having the experience yourself.
Also, it really depends on who you are. Like, are you the type of person who learns best from books, or the type of person who learns best from teachers? Because that changes things too. Just based on who you are. I've seen people who they are not. God, Bob, you had a name for this, right? You're a kinetic learner.
Oh yeah. I learned that from shorts.
Yeah,
it's that there's different. People have different ways of receiving. What's the word? They're more in tune with either their sight, their hearing, or their senses, or feeling kinetic energy.
So you can't learn unless you experience corporal punishment.
What?
You can't learn unless you experience corporal punishment.
Yes, exactly.
Hit me, then I'll understand.
It's
Harder, Daddy.
You learn to be sadistic and masochistic.
Sorry, I had to say that. Well, that's what comes to mind when you say kinetic learning.
Get punched all the time. Gotta get beat. But yeah, that's basically it. Certain people are more in tune with one or two different types of senses, and by learning that way, it's a lot more efficient.
Yeah,
it's very true, because Bob taught me how to draw trees, and he told me you just feel the tree, and that actually worked. Mm-hmm. I have no visualization skills, so great choice of career. Hey, I can't think, I don't see images in my head. All right, what you need to do, you need to become an artist. That's the thing for you.
You just need to be creative, and don't forget, green is not a creative color.
Boy.
Yeah, you gotta. Oh, is that a reference to something I don't get?
It's a reference to the YouTube series.
Hug me, I'm scared. Or don't hug me, I'm scared. Yeah, that's right.
Oh boy.
It's called Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Yeah, it's you have to. It's very good. It's very well done, and it will break your sleep pattern.
Oh boy. But my point was that there's different ways of learning, and you got to find out what way works for you. And self-discovery is really important. You gotta you start, right when you hit puberty, you start your process of self-discovery. You got to do it.
I have a wee wee. Oh, not that kind of self-discovery. Okay, got it.
And then you figure out who you are and what works for you. You never know. You can be surprised. It might be the Sears catalog. You never. Oh, they're out of business. Nah.
Yeah.
There's no Sears catalog. What is this? 1962. Okay. Bob and Weave says. And we're almost out of time. Actually, we are out of time.
We're overtime.
We are overtime. Why didn't you pursue fine art and hone your traditional oil painting skills? Because I didn't want to. I felt like there was something else for me in the world, and I was chasing that. And then that thing ran away down the hole, and I chased it down the hole, and I got stuck. Actually, that's kind of what happened. I was following one thing, and it's like, well, so I've said this a bunch of times. I'll just say it again. Good night for everyone who needs to go to sleep. I wanted to draw portraits that were sad, because when I was a kid, I never saw sad pictures that felt the right way. There was no one in the portraits who looked as depressed or angry as I was, or full of hatred. And I wanted to see that because I wanted to know, I'm like, are there any other people like me in the world? And so that was my mission. And then I thought, okay, how do I do this? And then I saw a Bugoro painting, and it wasn't that the expression was captured that I wanted, but it was that the skill was high enough to display a picture. And it's like, wow, I need that, because if I had that, I'd be able to say what I want to say. I'd be able to do these portraits I want to do. And I was doing them. Like, okay. And I learned how, or I was trying to learn, and then I learned and learned and learned over many years. And then it's like, okay, I'm moving towards that. And then I saw caricature, and I was like, wait, this does the thing, but more. This like, you took a thing, like a portrait, and you made it even more like a person. It's like, wow, I got to learn that. Then I went into caricature, and then I saw some of the best caricaturists were animators. And I was like, damn, they have gesture. My everything I do is stiff. How do I get that? That's really important. I went into animation, and then animation was all about like, oh, let's do work. Let's get jobs in animation. And I realized I don't want to be an animator. I just want a gesture. I got the gesture, and now what? And I was like, oh, we got to get jobs, right? Got to get jobs in the animation field. Like, okay, so I'm not going to be doing that. Oh, what do? I guess I got to get jobs doing something else. I have painting skill. Okay, I'll do stuff in painting, I guess. And then I forgot what my original point was. And then I realized I have a gallery that I don't care about. And what do I like? And then I thought, well, I like that whole depressed hatred portrait thing, right? And then I realized I don't actually feel those things anymore. So that's not going to be, I won't feel like I'm painting with integrity if I do that. I'll be detached from the feeling that I originally wanted to see. I was like, all right, well, what else did I like? Anime stuff, I guess. All right, let's do that. Let's try and come up with a style and make something that I think I can do. That's why I'm not doing fine art stuff. But then, if you ask me now why I don't do it, it's like, Jesus, it's not fun for me. It's not the process I enjoy. But maybe I will. Who knows?
I don't think I could ever like run a gallery and have to talk to art dealers and all that other stuff. A
lot of it is we have a client who wants a 2-meter painting that is predominantly yellow because they just painted their walls and their color scheme is yellow. It is that. That's this is true story that I've heard. So yeah, it really it's its own, like each thing has its own career path. And they're very different. So when we talk about art and getting jobs in the industry is usually just the entertainment industry, and that's only a small part of it. There's lots of different art things, and they're very different. And no, I already said that, so now I'm being redundant because our time is over. In the overtime, we get redundant. So, okay, last question. IB asks, do you have ideas on how to start with reality if eventually you want to draw from imagination? All right, Mark.
So if you wanted to, sorry, could you rephrase that? That one was a little complex.
I think the question he's asking is, if I start with reality, how do I? But I eventually want to be drawing from imagination. How do I bridge that gap?
Okay. I think that when you want to draw from imagination, it means that if you were to shut your eyes, you're able to imagine that thing from any angle. It's like being able to tumble the object around in your head and to rewind it and to fast forward it. And like to be able to draw something from imagination, it means that you can regenerate it. And again, like I'm going to go back to my thing where you have to completely understand the thing. So that means that if you were to study an object, you can't just do one painting of it from one angle and one perspective. Instead, you make a study of it by drawing it many times over from different angles, from different lighting conditions, by just, you're constantly moving the thing around and trying different situations and trying to get a thorough understanding of it. And when you have a thorough understanding of it and you can kind of imagine that thing, in any situation or the given situation, then you can draw it from imagination.
Cool.
So yeah, that's usually what I find.
I also suggest another method, which is like do both, and one will get better as you do the other. Like drawing from reality informs your imagination. I feel
Mhm.
like if you only draw from reality for too long, you tend to forget how to draw from imagination. You kind of build this.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I think
I was
you're
just
probably
going
going
to
to say
another
something
thing
better.
that you should pay attention to is what you draw when you relax, and what you draw over and over and over. Because when you want to draw things from imagination, it's not just about reality; it's about what comes from within you. So one of the things I notice is that I draw screaming faces a lot, or I draw clowns. That's a repeating pattern in your own psychology. So that means that's something that you can draw upon, literally.
Yeah.
But if you pay attention to that, then you realize there's already something within your imagination that wants to come out, and you focus on that. It's like a subject matter. You bring it out, you can practice it, you can draw it over and over again. And then when later you practice stuff from reality, you add into that inner library of your own works. So you can eventually create your own characters. You can create your own worlds, just things that fit into the topic that you already have within yourself. That's basically it.
I also had one other thing, which was that I would do a lot of life drawing, but what I would do is I would spend my entire week preparing for life drawing by first drawing people from imagination using, my own technique and whatever. So I would use construction, I would do, and I would try to figure a way to draw people from my imagination. And then when I went to life drawing, I wouldn't suddenly change my style over and my way of drawing over to some life drawing way of working. Instead, I would use my studio technique in the life drawing studio. So that meant that whatever I was doing to draw from imagination, I had to use when I was drawing real things in front of me. So I also did that.
Cool. Yep. There are lots of different ways to learn, and you should try them and see what works for you. And yeah, I think that's all we have time for. So I want to go ahead and thank my special guests who brought me back,
Hey.
Fabia and Mark. Wow, you can do that beatbox and stuff.
Yes.
That's fancy. Well, now. All right.
Well, it was great being on. I'm sure. I know they're like the one more time. Well, hey, maybe we should do this next week.
Not next week. Maybe, but not next week.
Okay.
But yeah, we should.
Well, some other time. All right. Yeah, we should totally do this again because I really enjoyed it.
Oh, that's great. I'm so glad when people enjoy things.
Okay.
Thank you to the viewers who tuned in, and for all of the people watching this in the future. I suppose there are people on Mark's channel.
Yes,
Well,
it was great having you. It was. I'm very glad. Thank you very much for inviting me because I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
I had a great time too, and I think you answered a lot of questions with a lot of knowledge and good wisdom, and you didn't put the dumb in wisdom. And I appreciate that.
All right. Peace out, guys.
All right, take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.